pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda for today. My remarks, public comment, meeting questions, new business, to the general manager and staff, discussing the referendum materials, and then adjournment. But I do know that there's at least one legal issue in the closed session that we have, and there's a personnel issue, closed session after our session. So if I can get an approval for the change of the agenda to include a closed session for personnel and legal issues.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My remarks will be short. I got some very positive responses to the meeting on Saturday, and I don't mean by positive meaning a yes or no. It's just that the information is presented well. All the rest will be found out later. But so thank you, Bob, and the rest of the team that helped put that together for the community so they have a good sense. And with that, I will move to public comment.
Good morning. Joe Reynolds, excuse me, Joe Reynolds, 84 Worktown Road. He comes sec's not here.
He's on his way.
Oh.
Yeah, there's an accident on 90.
I wanted to say something good about Pete.
You might
Maybe
want to check Pete's heart before you do that.
Oh, I've said
589 is
you
a mess.
recorded.
This is 90. I don't know what's going
There was
on.
an accident.
90 is a mess.
If you will grant me an opportunity if Pete arrives after public comment.
I will do
Thank
that.
you.
I will do that.
Thank you.
I think so.
First thing is the agenda here. When the agenda was sent out this time with the email as an attachment to an email, and when the meeting was announced originally for Saturday, and the subsequent meeting for today was announced that the meeting would be to review, I forget the exact words, actually to review the input that was received during the public meeting. Curiously, if you look at the agenda, there's nothing in there about that. In fact, it even says the goal was to review plan for informing members about the referendum, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing in here reviewing or talking about what anybody had to say on Saturday. Anyway, maybe a minor point, but if I could go over there, I'm going to address a couple things. I have a few questions I think are on people's minds, my mind. The storage area. I may have missed it, but I thought Bob said it was going to be used to like store chairs and stuff and whatever from the pool area. Was that one of the things was mentioned for this storage area?
As a possible use for that area, yes, sir.
The only reason I probably bring it up is this is a substantial size area of this new construction. I don't know what the cost per square foot is, but this would end up being, I would think, one of the most expensive storage areas we have in Ocean Pines. Per square foot business to build it. My suggestion would be not to change the size of the building or anything, but try to utilize this in some better way as opposed to filling this expensive space up with chairs and stuff. Just thought. Why is there an angle on this entrance area cover where you drive through? I'm just curious about that. A couple people asked me.
The way the parking lot, the way if you look at site plan, the way it flows from the parking lot, the building's turned a little bit, the angle actually allows for a smoother transition from the parking lot.
Yeah. I can't
It's
picture it.
right there, Joe, right
Yeah,
there. See the parking lot come straight?
Wait, Bannon.
See where the park
Right here.
Yeah, so it comes in straight across. So the angle actually, because the building's turned, the angle allows for a straight transition here with the.
What's the traffic flow? Right now, when you come into the yacht club, you can come all the way around this road, drive through, and come out into the parking lot. How will that doesn't look like we'll have that same.
Well, you've got an entrance here.
You're only going to be going in here, period.
Yeah.
Everything's in and out in one place. where now we have 2 places. Just another point that I haven't heard anybody mention. What's the covering on the, what's the floor, the ground floor level? Haven't heard that mentioned.
Tile. Tile, like a terracotta tile.
Like an asphalt or resilient type flooring or something that's solid?
Solid.
Oh, okay. Terry brought up the issue of the bathrooms used by pool people. We're going to have an open air bar here so that sometimes it'll either have doors or what, but this bar, unless we preclude people in swimming suits from coming in around the bar, they're not going to be walking in through this outside door. They're going to be walking out of here through the dining room and around to go to the bathroom. If people in bathing suits are allowed to sit here. So I mean, just another consideration. Whether it's important or not, I don't know. We got a service elevator here. And I'm wondering, I'm sure there's a reason. But since we have 2 separate kitchens, I would assume fully capable of handling service on each floor, why do we need a service elevator from the prep room? Other than to take people up and down.
No. You also, if you think about it, that's also the first floor is where all the everything comes in, all the food, everything, right there, right above it, Joe.
Gotcha.
So you just come around and you can load either kitchen from that floor.
So then they've got to haul the food and stuff up to the prep area up here via the service elevator.
Yes, sir.
Okay, gotcha. Harbor Master office. Just out of curiosity, why do we have 3 entrances into the Harbor Master office?
The double door entrance, you know where we store right now we have a little covered spot where they store the push trailer, trailer zone, I think it's called. It's like a little wheelbarrow that people
So
use.
it's going to be divvied up into a couple spaces.
Yes, yeah, we just didn't subdivide the space on the fish carts. Yeah, the fish carts.
When you come in the first floor, you're going to be seated in this area. You're going to come in here, go to the hostess. You want to sit out here. And I don't know of any other way to do it, but just the thought occurred to me that if you want to sit outside, somebody got to come in here, all the way to the dining room, open sliding doors, and then go out. And when serving out there, you either got to come out here, go out this door, come around, or walk through this area to get service. I don't know if there's a better way to do that or not. The kitchen on this side also means that whatever we serve over here, or if we have an outside area, tiki bar or something, that service has to come, I guess, out of this area,
Right.
through here.
Exactly. Down.
Well, yeah, I guess they could go up that way, but
No,
they come down here, come out,
okay, you just did it. That's
And-
correct.
then take it out.
Yes.
One thing I haven't heard mentioned, I've heard at least board candidates say that the building this would cause no increase in the assessment, which is not true. As everyone at this table should know. Because the instant it's finished, we start depreciating 4.3 million or whatever we spend. Plus, some things are not depreciable, but has anybody calculated what this would add to the assessment as a result of depreciation?
Yes.
Oh, you're here.
That was brought out at the last meeting.
Yeah, it was brought up in the last meeting. In round numbers, it's 40 years. Round numbers, please. $4 million, 40 years, $100 grand a year. $100 grand a year divided by 8,400. I'm sorry. No. Try it again.
I'm mumbling.
Okay.
Just give me an assessment increase number.
12?
10, 12 bucks roughly?
12.50?
Okay. All right. And I think we ought to be honest when we're selling this to people. I think we need to be honest and include that kind of information.
That comment has been
Because
made
if we
before.
don't, those who are opposed will say, oh, they're hiding this, they don't want us to know. So Pete, glad to see you here. I think I said to you once before personally, if not to the whole board. First of all, I appreciate your service on the board. I really do. I said to you one time that if you're going to design the perfect board member, you would design Pete Gumsack. But that doesn't mean you're going to agree with him all the time. Pete, you do your homework. I know you do. You put in a lot of time and effort, perhaps as much or more than anybody ever has in this community. That doesn't mean that how those things are interpreted or whatever, that could be open a lot of discussion, but I appreciate your service.
And I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Media. Okay, Mike.
I didn't want to block before.
Pete, you wanna?
No, I didn't want to block before Joe was up there and we could access. Sorry, I'm a little tamed because of Ocean Fire business.
Okay. Next thing is new business, general manager. You see the topics on the agenda. So start working through them. What happened on Saturday?
Tom, I'm sorry. Did somebody amend the agenda? Thank you.
I guess the first thing we'll do is talk a little bit about Saturday and the comments we had back. I mean, for me, I thought Saturday went well. We had some good comments. We had both positive and some folks that didn't fully agree with everything. But overall, I thought that we got the information out, and I had a lot of positive feedback. Even for those that may not agree with it, they appreciate the amount of information presented, which I thought went well. So we only had one or two. Of all the people, we had over 250 people there. We had what were our seating that we set up? 240? 230 in seating, then we had people on the bleachers, and we had people around the back of the room. So I thought it went well. It's well attended. And like I said, even those that disagree with what we're moving forward with were respectful, and I thought it went well. There was only a couple of people that yelled out from the audience, and I tried to get them not to do that, but you always have people that are going to make those type of issues. So overall, I thought it was respectful and well attended by the community, and I appreciate the feedback. Anybody else?
We were kind of strategically placed. It was in the back of the room. Dan was up against standing on the wall. I was with him for a while, and then I went actually to where people were leaving, and we had a lot. I had a lot of positive comments. And I'll tell you, David was in that hallway, and
he was selling the whole time.
he was. But people were very interested to talk to him, and so it was good. He had great interaction.
And I can only echo the same. I was sitting back there, and I wasn't approaching anyone, but several people approached me. For the most part, were very positive and asked questions of a positive nature, in that they wanted a deeper, better understanding of what quite straight on how the financing was going to be done and that sort of thing. That gave me an opportunity to explain that to them, and that's something I wrote here as a note. I know how many times it's been explained and shown to the membership. There's still a feeling out there that no matter what we do, they are going to get an assessment increase of $100 or $150 to take care of this. I know we've explained it every way from which way. I don't know what else we can do, but we need, and I have said this many times, we need to be very truthful with the people and explain it when we go out so clear that this pen understands it. And I can't get any clearer than say how clear we have to do it. So we can't do it in accounting terms. We need to do it in layman terms that people understand.
I was standing at about the middle of the questions line. So
Yeah, I thought you were lying.
I got the questions before I did.
Yeah.
And it was interesting after people asked questions, a few people that, as usual, most of the questioners tended to be folks with negative attitudes as opposed to positive attitudes. That's generally what we see at all of these sessions. And I think it's a good thing because it brings out points that people felt uncomfortable about or weren't sure of. It was interesting, the thing that was interesting was as they left the question and answer line after they got their questions answered, a couple of people looked at me and said, I didn't really understand what you were doing. Now that I do understand or have a clear idea of what you're doing, I'm going to rethink my position on this thing. Nobody said, wow, I'm going to turn back, folks, and go out and recruit people to vote for it. But the point was that again, we're down to the issue of communications and how do we get the message to everybody in Ocean Pines. And I think we're going to have to look at what we typically would use as a media mix to get that done. Because obviously we don't reach everybody in the Pines with everything that we said.
And even with the people who spoke, there were exactly 20 people who spoke. Now, with 200 and some people there, we didn't know how many of those 20 had a significant other sitting in the audience. So, yeah. That is the issue.
I think the one thing this is a town meeting to listen to and get ideas from the people. It's the last one before referendum. Actually, it's not quite the last one. I understand we do one thing before, which will be good. And I guess, I listened to them, jotted notes as fast as I could on most of what people were saying. I didn't see anything that, I didn't hear anything at the meeting that would make us change the course of action. That's the main thing. The purpose of the meeting is to say, okay, has somebody said something which we really need to go back and reconsider? And even the negative ones were not of a nature that I think you could do that. I think the meeting was positive. I think that most people understood what they heard, and I think which is the purpose, not to sell them on the idea, yes or no, but the purpose is that they understand. I think keep continuing in that vein, not selling it, but making sure that all the information is, as much as we can put, is out there, is what we should be doing.
Dave just said something that resonated with me. We should not be selling it, but getting the information out there. I think the information itself will sell the project to those who are inclined to give it a fair chance. And so there's that fine line between selling and advocating versus trying to get the information out to allow people to make a more informed judgment. That's all. And how we do that, of course, and in multiple ways, obviously.
Oh yeah, that's one of the things.
But that is the key, because even though you had a great turnout on Saturday, it represents a very small percentage of the entire membership and a very small percentage of those who will be voting. So we have to somehow define how we're going to get this message out and to let the message itself be the carrier of the
key,
the message.
I think the key is making sure that people in a very simple way understand how it's
Can't hear you.
that people understand in a very simple way how it's going to be paid for. One of the slides you didn't use Saturday, and I thought about it, was the 5-year plan. You forgot to put that up there, and I think that simplifies in people's minds the way it's supposed to be taken care of, because that's what a lot of people are concerned about. Are we going to pay for it?
Yeah, and the question earlier by Joe, and it was $11.85, Joe, around $12. The answer to your question. That's just the depreciation. Now, obviously, that's a round number because some of the equipment it doesn't include equipment. This is construction cost. So most of it's going to fall into that category of probably 40 years to a couple of years. But the same thing happened with the community center. As soon as that went on the books, we began to depreciate $1.7 million structure, right? Again, compartmentalized, it averages down a little bit. And so every time we replace an asset, whether it be a police car or a community center or a yacht club, you've got that factor. In the case of the community center, we were coming off the prior year where it had zero depreciation because the building was fully depreciated. this entire $363,000 of cost. In the case of the yacht club, we've got components that are still being depreciated. So you've got the new depreciation, but you'll minus out and zero out them. So somehow getting that information out. But I think the question was responding to no special assessments to fund the construction, no loans to fund the construction. Yes, there will be depreciation costs and utility savings and all that, but somehow we've got to find a way to simplify the message there. But, and also, though, I mean, I've heard some feedback about the catering. I don't know whether, again, I had to miss it. I was out of town, wedding-related planning and all that stuff. But whether or not, I know it continues to come up about, well, why do we need two-story versus one? And what about that catering business? Why are we in the catering business? Well, we tried to answer that as best we could, but how many people of the 8,140 members have received that message that it's about us, not them? And so how do we do that? I don't know. We need some help here.
Well, let me step in here. I think that, and then I'm going to come back to Bob unless someone else has preliminary comments to make. I think it's a Q&A approach. I think it's what is their question, here's the answer, and try to be as direct as we can. There are always going to be folks out there who take whatever our answers are to the questions and try to turn them as, you know, you're not fully vetting all the information. Well, the reality is, you know, we need to send out an entire documentation on the whole concept of depreciation and how it works, and it becomes something nobody in their lifetime is going to read.
Gene Ringsdorf.
Pete will read it. Gene will read it.
Nobody's asking.
I think, Joe, I wasn't making a
No.
negative comment. Let me finish. I wasn't making a negative comment to Joe's. I think we do need to reflect the impact of it, so that it's very clear what the impact is. Without question, we need to do that. But to me, it's a Q&A approach, with simply answering the questions that we know people are asking, ones that we think we've already answered, but we'll answer them again. People simply need to know the what, the why, the how, as part of the information that we get. And you know, that to me, that's the essence of getting the information in front of folks without putting out, you know, flashing red lights and trucks driving around yelling, "Say vote yes." We don't need that.
I take that off.
You take that off the list.
So where we are then is, I think everyone is in problem with that. What methodology are we going to use?
That's part of why I've asked Bob to come forward with where are we just in this whole process. And then I know that we have discussed with various folks the idea of the board of directors writing a letter, you know, with me signing as president to the community that goes in the newspapers. There's also been discussion of utilizing some campaign and money possibly, which I know has also been moved around the table. But with that, I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to let Bob go through where we are, and then we'll see what we want to do, if anything different. Okay. We do have lunch arriving. Now that Ray has left, we're having lunch arriving at 12:30.
These
are some of the things that not everyone may be aware of that we're working on. I'm going to just share a couple back. Actually, a couple extra. You guys should share those if you like. Here are some of the things that we are working on that maybe everyone does. I don't think everyone's aware of, and maybe you're aware of some, but not all. Some things we're already working on. Obviously, we've been through the public hearing. This was something we've internally been working as we're going through this. We've been, with the public hearing, we advertised its website. All those, we're kind of past that part. We will be running the public hearing video. It's up, so it's going to be on the website, so you're able to access it and look at it, look at any parts or pieces you want. Some of the other things that are occurring as we speak is I've already, these are the mini meetings that I've had set up. I've already met with 3 of the groups. You'll see the dates have passed. I did meet all those. Kiwanis was the last group this morning. And had some good questions. They echoed some of the questions from the weekend. But I think that's at least a good way from my perspective for me to be out there talking to people. We have folks calling in asking about it, and if any group would like us to come out and talk, I mean, I'm making myself available then, yes.
When you have tennis club here, does that include platform tennis or just?
No, what happened, one of the tennis group has a luncheon they do every other week, and they invited me to come out and have lunch with them. And when I did, we talked, I answered a lot of questions about a number of things, yacht club being one of the topics. So these are informal, some are a little more formalized. Kiwanis has their regular meeting, but they asked me to come out, and I spoke this morning. So no, it did not include platform.
Suggestion maybe try to do that on a Saturday morning.
We've reached out to all the groups and made made it available to them. These are the ones that have asked us to come out and speak.
I suggest you get a hold of Yang before.
Everyone's been asked. I mean, we've sent the information out to everybody, and these are the ones that have
Making
called
yourself
back.
available?
Yes. We've encouraged that, so we would love to have an opportunity to come out.
Maybe they don't have a club, but what about aquatics? The swimmer.
As a group?
You got a whole,
there's quite
you got a whole
quite
bunch
number.
of people around the yacht club pool who are.
The aquatics community.
The aquatics community is what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
It's not a club per se, but it's a group of people, right? Substantial.
Yeah, they have individual groups within the community, but I don't know them. I'm not.
Oh, we might be able to set up.
Swimming women, are they still around?
Well, that's, you're looking at
Yes.
women,
Yeah.
I mean, not women, but communications again, because we can identify the people who have aquatics memberships. But we have to reach out to them almost on a direct mail basis to let them know that something is available.
I wrote it aquatics community, and we can look at how we might be able to tackle that. But
Well,
these,
One thought. You and I had the conversation a couple of weeks ago about, with respect to the clubs committee. Unfortunately, they're not having the July meeting any longer. They canceled it. But I floated the idea of the clubs committee going before them, not only them, but asking them to invite friends or guests to hear the message. Not necessarily to participate in their full meeting, but if you were going to be on the agenda for the front part of that meeting, or the tail end of it or something, and any of these, I would think maybe the more the better, right? So
oh yeah,
asking them if they would be open to inviting guests of theirs to hear the message as well. It could be a spouse, it could be a friend, it could be a neighbor.
one of the last items on page 2 actually says advisory committee meetings. That's another, we can reach out to all the chairs, and Teresa's already doing this to, the opportunity to get the opportunity to speak in front of other groups whenever they're meeting, or have a special meeting with them.
But if you had a 7-person committee and each brought 2 friends, then you're talking about 21 versus 7. So, I mean.
Yep.
Okay.
I agree with you.
So just to make sure I understand it, Nick, the first step in this process for the mini town hall meetings was to send out the availability of it. The group on the left has already stepped up and said, we would like to have more information, come talk to us.
Yes.
The list I have created for my own notes on the right with a platform, tennis group, anglers, and aquatics, question mark on aquatics of how we do that.
Golf.
Golf. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a subgroup to the right now that, a second proactive contact perhaps to make that connection. Yes.
How about having a meeting of members of all the advisory committees, members of all at one time? That seemed to me would add up to
Well,
a
that
pretty
may,
significant
that
number.
may be a better idea because I know one of my committees does meet in July.
But just to have them.
You might have a lot of
Like
the
that.
committees that are, taking July off.
Okay. Write that down.
Everyone can join an advisory.
Maybe.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Although I would say in some cases, such as golf, what you really trying to target is not the
Can't-
committee, but the
Yeah.
community.
Right.
Right.
No, golf is a separate, I've got platform tennis, anglers, aquatics question mark, because I'm not sure how we do it, golf, and then from the second page, do it all together, advisory group session. Not a bad idea.
Yeah, and something like golf, that's their own communication skill.
Yeah, right. Good idea.
And that could be a special meeting of communication, all the golfers, hey, there's a meeting at 1 o'clock on such and such, and whatever.
You
Yeah.
have named people to contact in aquatics. The person who does the swim lessons.
Well, understand, when I get to the end of this, I'm going to look at all of you, and I think Dan is probably going to say,
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to ask you guys to help. These are what
Absolutely.
we're doing currently.
Absolutely.
the different groups, I'm gonna say, hey, we need some help, because I think this really is gonna be, I mean, I can do as many of these as much as we have to, but I think it's also part
can't
of.
do it
All my thought is the management teams, we all.
Hey, Tom,
Okay.
Tom, just for your information, the Actors Club meets once a month up at the library and get their schedule. They fill that library room mostly every month, so that's a pretty good crowd every month.
I forgot, I had missed the beginning of it.
The Anglers Club.
Oh, Anglers,
They
okay.
fill the library
All
every month, and Bud Heim is a contract, but Jack Barnes is the guy who handles their promotion and stuff, so he would be one contact for it.
Okay, thank you.
How about the boat club?
I got those.
Got their own,
Frank is.
they're on the list
They're
already.
scheduled.
They're on the
They're
list.
Where they were held, actually.
Teresa's already made a lot of these contacts, so when we get to the end, we probably.
We'll get
all need to
organized as
check
to
with
who's
her.
doing what, yeah.
Another comment, and this is in the middle, Bob, but I think it's germane, and that's that if you start finding yourself with a bigger and bigger list of people to talk to, there is no reason in the world why we can't reach out to board members to go do some of those
That's
talks.
basically what I heard him just say.
Yeah,
That's, I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's what he was asking for.
I think that, I thought
I
that's
would
what
like
you
to
meant
help.
a minute ago, yeah.
Yeah.
That we would be helping
Okay.
do this,
That's
absolutely.
fine. That's,
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so in addition to all the individual, the smaller group meetings, we have 4 guided tours set up. The guided tours are of the yacht club. I mentioned that a couple times before, but we've actually had folks that have called in and signed up for the different days. And that's still open to anybody, and what we're gonna do is we're just gonna walk through the facility, and we're gonna point out some of the areas. I mean, you've seen the pictures, but some folks, I think showing it to them up front is gonna be good. When we do that, we will pick one of the meetings, whichever one, and we're gonna pick one of them, and we're gonna record it so we can bring it back and also show it on the, add that to the video list of things people can see. If we're gonna do it, it's easy enough to record, and Dave said he would do that.
speaking of video lists and things that we're showing on that, again, I'm throwing out comments as we
Yeah,
get into the
great.
subjects. One of the comments that I heard from a couple of people, including a gentleman sitting behind me, is that we should strongly consider, if at all possible, setting up a separate website that dealt specifically with this facility and this program, and hot link it to our website, so that you don't get, we've got a very big and sometimes
Busy,
hard to
very
find,
busy. It's a
it's hard to find your way around websites sometimes for people, and it dissuades them. But if on the first page there's a find out about the yacht club, click here.
You can have a URL just to go to that page.
Exactly.
Not on any webpage, but www.yachtclub.
I mean, just a way to take somebody straight to a spot that's got an organized presentation of all the information that we're putting together.
And in the homepage, just so you all know, if you haven't been able to take a look, we actually have a link, but it goes to
Yes.
other pages, but yes, a separate URL and
A separate subject type.
Correct. Okay.
There's a downside to doing that.
What's that?
Well, because then you lose people who haven't accessed our website, the ability to just have to go through our website to see it, so.
What we said a moment ago was do both.
Can't hear you, Terry.
Do both.
Do both. You have, maybe a separate page, but also a separate.
You have an opportunity to maybe catch an audience that normally wouldn't go to your website.
If you create, right.
And so it's a way to kind of force them to go through that process, and then maybe they'll come back to your website. You see what I'm saying? I mean,
It might be a first experience thing.
Yeah.
I think as
So
long as
you
we're
could do it
doing
either
both,
way,
we're fine.
but.
Do both, yeah.
Do both and link them. Okay. I mean, in the new website should have a link back to our normal website
Right.
too. I mean,
It does, yeah.
Okay.
Page 2, we have video tour.
Before you leave,
Yes.
on
Yes.
guided tours, can you give us a feel for what kind of response you're getting on these tours?
Yeah, we got a dozen for the first one on Saturday, and about a dozen over the other 3.
Okay, so people are hearing about it. That's, again, the problem with doing these, it's not a problem. The challenge of doing these things is to get to the people who would be interested in getting on them.
Yeah, and I sent something to the paper that who published this, sent out to people at the newsletters. They post up the
We gotta get shipped to sell us that little flag space up on his front page.
He uses it for us a lot.
I know.
All right, page 2 goes to video. One of the, we're going to, again, I said we're going to videotape when we do the tour, and then we'll have it up on Channel 78, the website, and blast it out so folks can click and see. It just gives you a more hands-on feel. We're also looking at where we might be able to set up viewing stations or a room, and a couple of things to set up the static displays like we have around here, because we have some extras. Right behind you is a marketing board that we've got about 8 of them, and you'll notice you can run a PowerPoint, there's a number of things that can actually be played on there, but we're going to set those up in strategic parts of the community where we have high traffic areas, so folks, while they're standing in line waiting for something, they're able to have something that's flashing with the new concept, the new programs. We can put a PowerPoint slide on there. There's a number of things we can do there. So these are the activities that we are actively engaged in, we've already set up, and that we're working. I would welcome the opportunity, to work with any of you all, because I think for this to pass, we all have to be involved in it. Only thing I'd ask is we try to coordinate the effort, so I can either get you the materials you need if you're out on your own, or we're not duplicating the efforts.
Let me just, in that light, let me ask the question, organizationally, how do we want to coordinate us in our involvement? Lisa?
That's what I would suggest, Barbara, she's got this contact with them. Yeah, I mean, however we're gonna go out, because then we need one person.
That's why I'm raising my hand going, how do you guys want us to function?
Organizationally, I think.
Are you comfortable with that, Chris?
Yeah, no, it's great. Any contact you can get to the group, if you know someone directly that.
But are you also raising the involvement of particular board members?
Yeah, I mean, have one
When
person.
to insert, yeah.
Exactly, and then Teresa, it can be her task to keep us all in line, but also to make sure Bob knows what we're
Hey,
doing.
Dan or Terry, are you available on Thursday,
He wants to do
whatever?
it, and we can tell her, and then just to make sure Bob's, instead of us bombarding him,
Well, and the other thing,
she's the keeper of the calendar.
the other thing that goes with that, folks, is that we all got to be singing from the same song.
Same talking point.
So, we need to can a presentation that we can use as a starting point, PowerPoint or something that's got the visuals in it. Maybe got a little video in it or the video tour in it, which I think is going to be very effective. In a form that we can use.
Now, the 3 that I've done have mostly been Q&A. The last one, like this morning at Quantas, I took the boards.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done a formal PowerPoint. The formal PowerPoint was at the town hall meeting.
Well, we can edit that down to.
We could, but here's the question for you there, and certainly that's easy to do. I have no issue creating that. The challenge for everyone here at the table, I don't mind. I can create a small, quick, down and dirty PowerPoint. You've got to have a projector, you've got to have a computer, and you have to know how to use it.
I just want the information.
Shopping information, talking points.
Yes.
I already have a computer, a projector.
Well, again, and the other thing is, and again, I'll do whatever. I mean, we've got, any way we think we can get the information out, I just want to make sure that we collectively agree. Because what I've tried to do with the smaller groups is not overwhelm them with all the material. I do a quick run through, like Qantas. I spent maybe 6 or 7 minutes just going through the pictures and the layout, and then I just opened the floor to talk. And that's primarily it was a Q&A at that point.
To that Q&A issue, as I mentioned earlier, what I would suggest within the next 24 hours, based on the talks you've already done in the town meetings, come up with a top 15, top 10 questions that have been asked and answers, so that if we, because I agree that at some point you've got to, the group you're talking to has to, in essence, open the door to the door they want you to go through what you're talking about. You've got to have the information, but they've got to be able to get what they want. out of that presentation. It's a canned presentation in the sense of the information is the same.
Right.
But the actual event itself is driven by Q&A. And I think if we can get the top 15 questions that are
They're
asked,
always gonna be asked.
the answers that we've
Right,
got.
right.
I kind of agree with that strongly. I think the first step is the Q&A. That's what sets us on the right page. The question, the answer. We agree on those. I think the presentation itself almost presents itself. I mean, you put up one of those things and let people go through it. I think most people have heard it, and if they haven't, then the Q&A would bring it out.
And then we do have a projector for those of us who have
Sure.
laptops. I mean,
Right.
you know, if I have this on a CD, I can slide it in my laptop, put it up and put it on the wall.
Yeah.
The point, though, behind what I'm trying to get at, and this is crucial, and that's that we are all, and I'll say it again, singing from the same song sheet. I don't want to walk into a room and say, okay, the old building is umpteen square feet and the new building is some other square foot as footage, and have Pete saying something slightly different to a different group who happen to be friends with each other, because that just creates misinformation and we're dead.
Whereas this additional 2,000
That's
square
the
feet
reason
being
for
used
the,
to
that's the
create
reason for
that-
the
that's not-
presentation package more than anything else, is that it's a reference for the board, so that we have
Now,
a guide.
The other thing I would throw out to you all, and not that you all shouldn't be doing presentations, I don't mean that at all, but I'm pretty much available within my schedule. If you have groups, you want to set it up and coordinate it, I can come talk it. I mean, please understand, it's part of what I'm doing every day right now on this. I don't expect the board to have to do it all. I'll do the talking papers. I'll get those together. That's easy.
Again, I'm sort of, I'm trying to, I know what Dan is talking about, and I envision that being not a presentation, but a basic fact sheet.
Right, that's
And
why I
that-
Exactly.
So it might be 1 or 2 pages or something like that, but here's, and that's our reference to most of the questions, but you don't present that.
You just brief yourself, make sure you're aware.
We're talking about frequently facts, right? Frequently asked questions, right? But we all received an email yesterday from someone who chimed in with some suggestions that we consider in terms of reaching out to others, the voters, if you will. And one of the suggestions was two-man teams, two-person teams, and perhaps with 15-minute presentation. I mean, I personally think there is some benefit to having a presentation of some small amount of time to visually show this, visually show, I don't know, banquet usage, 5-year plan, whatever the key points of small, limited, not 10 minutes, right? And then go from there with a Q&A. And that way, every presentation would have that basic component to it. That's just my thought. So I think you can combine several different
I can
elements.
certainly create something that I can't do in 24 hours. It's not realistic to say 24 hours. I mean, I could, but you might not agree. So, but I can certainly put.
48.
Yeah, I can do it this afternoon. You got to be able to keep up.
The essence of the whole thing, to what I heard Dan say and others are saying, that I think we're all saying in different phraseology, there is some sort of canned, static, established set of facts and figures that are available for us when we're having a discussion. The question that I would have to those, mainly you and Teresa, who have already been interfacing with the community quite a bit, I know the board members have been doing the same, but you more than us at this point by the nature of it. I see a lot of information about a new building. I haven't seen a whole lot of information as to why. As to why we voted 7-0 to do what we're doing. I'm not being negative, I'm just saying in the sense of...
Why don't you just fix it up?
Yeah, in essence, the question for me that we have to answer is why did we vote to do what we're doing? And yes, we have to explain the new building and show all that, but all of the feedback, not all, a lot of it I'm getting is great, keep going, way to go. The other parts are why. And every time I've had a chance to explain the why, the person says, now I get it.
Well, quite honestly, we've got some people out there in the community, some running for the board, who are saying, oh, all you need to do is spend X and it's fine. And that email we got yesterday referred to that particular situation. But in any event, why? Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out.
Why were we because we've invested the time and energy to understand it, we've analyzed the response, I mean, this is over a 6-month period of time.
Just let him
Let
answer
me
that.
ask you something. You guys are saying the why. I need to understand the why, at least from my perspective. We've answered new versus old, or new versus renovate. I think we need to have at least a page on it or a few questions, but what I'm hearing more so than why is why this size facility.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm asking you guys.
Yeah,
What
that's
I'm
fine.
hearing,
I've heard that
on
too.
there.
I think that's the bigger question.
I've heard
That's
that
what
too.
that is.
And that's more what I'm hearing, and we're putting some, we're already working on a Q&A now, so we can answer that question, so we can
Okay,
just
good.
do that, if that's what you're
Yes.
looking
That's fine.
for.
Yeah, well, we're just having a
No, I know, I
round
just,
robin here. I think that's a
And
good
there's
idea.
specific reasons why.
Yeah,
It just
why?
needs to be articulated.
okay.
The other, the other issue that I know has been brought forward is some kind of utilization of advertising, formal advertising.
Yeah, some professional help.
Not only that, but actually doing some professional advertising of this.
Oh, I see.
And when I say the phrase advertising, I mean that it is it is not necessarily a promotional, with balloons everywhere, but it is factual and allows us to put, gives us the opportunity to take advantage of that piece of getting information out as well.
Well, you all can do what you want, but I mean, that strikes me of putting up signs saying just vote yes. And I think we've seen that one time before, and what happened as a result of it.
Yep, and I have the T-shirt to prove it. That's neither here nor there.
And I think, again, informational meetings, I mean, very important. A professional advertiser who is definitely going to push the idea and say how people should encourage people to vote in the right way. I think it's inappropriate, in my opinion.
Well, you got to deal, Dave, with the reality of how do you reach 8,446 property owners, or maybe 16,000 if there are 2 owners per property or whatever. And regardless of what we do, what's Teresa, the biggest opening day you've had on eBlast is probably what, about 2,500?
Right.
Okay.
And Hurricane was up there around 3,000.
Okay. Hurricane was up around 3,000. That's less than half.
That's
Of
the
our
hurricane,
membership.
2,500 is the max.
We're still, I have no problem not doing a hard sell on this. That's not what I'm suggesting here either. What I'm worried about is how about those other 5,000 people that don't get the message? And how do we get the message out to them? And you're almost forced to look at it and say, okay, the only real way we're going to be able to do this is to probably utilize direct mail with something in it from the president and the Q&A list saying that something else is coming. Because in my head, there are 2 key pieces to this package. One is, why are we doing it, and what is it that we're doing, and how do we get to this? So that's the Q&A that you're going to go through. The other one is, what is it that you're going to get? And that's what you're seeing flipping up on these pictures behind you. And I think people need to see both. And I think, frankly, the pictures, once people are aware of what's going on and why it's happening, and then they see what it is that's going to come up, it gets to be a pretty solid argument about this is worthwhile doing, and the board hasn't gone off into lull in some way with a last-minute decision.
I think if we use media or whatever just to provide factual information, frequently asked questions, it's not, I don't know if that's necessarily selling, saying vote one way or the other. It's just providing the information. I know that the circulation of some of the local media is as high as 5,000. So that's factual information. So if you're providing factual information, not putting a slant on how to vote one way or the other, just These are the questions that were asked. Frequently asked questions, and get it out there.
When's the last time there was a referendum question?
2009.
That building.
What was the return?
That return, I remember the voting, but I think it was about 40%.
You need about 2,500 yes votes.
I think it was
No,
about,
yeah.
I think it was about 40%.
40% of the 8,000 plus.
Yeah, I think
Probably
so.
8,000 eligible, you got
It
about.
was-
3,200, 3,500.
It was a pretty good return, and there was a pretty good
Thanks, Terry.
response
My
in
pleasure.
favor. But the actual numbers, I don't know.
Well, if it's 40%, that's 32 to 35.
Well, I'm asking that question because
Yeah.
it's the same way as the voting for candidates.
It's
You know,
not
we're
the
trying to reach all 8,000 plus, and in general, the return is never more than,
About
okay, let's
25%.
say 25, now 40% for a referendum question. So,
People will read what they get in the mail. They'll read the referendum, you know, when you send a referendum question, they'll read what you send with it.
I mean, it seems to me that, and I think we talked about this, the frequently asked questions has to be an insert in that mail. Because some people aren't going to read anything else.
Frequently asked questions were in the referendum package for,
Yeah, and that's a normal thing.
yeah.
But do we
It's
want-
education.
All right, but let's don't.
But that's
There's
when
an
you're voting.
there's an assumption lying under your comment that I want to step on here real quick. And that's, do we stop or our thinking with we're doing a mailing? Teresa will tell you that multiple mailings are much more effective than a single mail. So if we break it down into perhaps 2 or even 3, where the first one coming at us from the president saying, hey, something important's on its way to you that's going to deal with this subject, start looking for it, and then a week later the package arrives, we might be able to boost some of our readership and boost some of our response. You don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing out strategy observations. when you start-
I am
those mailings
supportive.
cost?
I'm supportive of multiple mailings.
A lot. Each of those mailings cost us what?
Yeah, if you're talking about mailing, I mean, if you want to get an effective mailing strategy, and I agree with Dan that the multiple is. I mean, a postcard's an extremely effective and very inexpensive. I mean, it's not a formal letter, but you could hit some bullet points on a postcard, and you can do it in a couple different sizes, and that could reach everybody. But again,
Because we have that significant number, as Tom Terry referred to them, across the bridge, that don't get them.
I used to be one of them. I lived in Columbia. I was on the other
Well,
side
no,
of the road.
but that's the
Roughly
issue that I'm
half.
trying to get to is
And they're only
we're looking at
reachable by
roughly half
mailing.
the people who own property here don't live here, so.
And Dan, if you could reach those people, that is everybody, with something before the actual ballot, so they know it's coming, they're heightened. Now, obviously, the most recent Ocean Pines report, the quarterly report, contained quite a bit of information in there, so hopefully that's very helpful to us. But this frequently asked questions thing, if that could, or some iteration of that, be sent in a separate mailing as a heads up to the actual ballot coming a couple weeks later, a week later, whatever it is, that would be positive.
it is July the 25th. And people across the bridge tend to get their mail a lot later. So we might want to consider how many, yeah, I mean, we have people complain all the time about the newsletter.
That's sent bulk, right?
It's first time out
Out of
of
town.
town, like they're sometimes here, or they're, and so they gotta wait till they get back there. You gotta look at timing, because they're hard to track down, they're here, they're getting their mail there now.
I like to walk in the office and pick them up here.
But I'm
Newsletter,
just
yeah,
pointing that out.
If they're here, they're gonna read some of the
There's a
local
limited,
notifications.
very limited
The
time
reality
to do
is-
something and mail something.
I like my input here is I like the idea of the postcard. It's less expensive. It's a quick turnaround. It's coming and another piece of information. But I think we have the responsibility of using every media out there that we can reasonably make use of to put the facts and the Q&As in front. I think it's a requirement that we try to use as many vehicles of getting information out there, in my mind. I don't think we should, this is a very, very important decision, as we all know. And, I don't want to save $400 and miss an opportunity of getting the information out there so people know what the reality is of, and the other side of this issue, and I'll say it here, the other side of this issue is, the plan B, what if? So, rarely is that building's not going to last much longer. So I think we have to, that's a Q&A question we've got to answer as well. But I think we need to use every piece of media available within reason, as long as the message is crafted correctly. It doesn't have to be even the mailings we're sending out have to be factual. At some point, folks, it does become us informing the membership of, we voted 7-0 to do this. So it's not like we're going to put a package out there that says don't vote for it. It doesn't have to be over the top, but it's got to be factual.
It's right up at the top that it is the board recommendation that you vote yes on this. And there's nothing mysterious about that.
It just stops right there. Exactly.
But it stops right there, and then you get the Q&A.
Yes, right.
And the information on the building, and the prettiest pictures we can pack in there. The pictures we had on the, I don't know if anybody remembers it, but the thing we sent out for that, boy, they were crummy. They were like a little.
Tell you what, let's take 10 minutes and get a sandwich and something to drink, and we'll come back. Okay.
Yeah.
I just pointed to him to say, come on over.
The other piece of the puzzle that was requested in the agenda Thank goodness what?
Thank goodness we're killing fallen trees.
All right, we did a quick mock-up of a potential referendum package. We looked at some of the past packages we put out. There are some things in here, for example, on page 3, or the cover where this is the process when you first open. Those slides won't be there. We created a mock-up, so we had a flow that we thought would be important to go out. We recognize it would be full color. We got some pricing. We talked to the same folks that do the newsletter for us. So we're working on pricing on the mailing and what they'll look like when they go out. But this was a sample based on some of the past ones that we've done of how we felt this would be the material in the referendum.
There ought to be 30,000, shouldn't it?
What's that?
400 functions and 3,000 attendees. That's actually 30,000.
I go back.
This question.
Go back.
Page 5. Stats.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do we have banquets catering? 400 functions, 3,000 attendees. Hey, pretty small banquets.
Yeah, 10 people.
Right.
Well, we ought to build a one-story then. Never mind.
And again, you'll notice with the Q&A or the fact sheet, you know, they're not fully vetted out. I just started throwing things at it that I was thinking about, just so we knew.
You might want to, please don't let yourself people with the stuff, because we all know.
You're right.
Now,
Parking lot
As-
signs and water signs.
how would, on things like the Q&A, how do you intend to proceed on that?
Well, I was going to actually, interestingly, because you all talked about doing a mock-up, you know, a canned presentation. So my intent now is to take some out of the canned presentation and use those right in here as well, because the questions all should be very, very similar. And I was just going to put whatever questions we felt we needed to answer.
Well, I mean, it's not the intent, or is it the intent to do that right now, as we sit there?
No.
Or no, I mean.
No, this is a-
So in other words, we take this home and we start, we can think and write.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
submit and do that,
Yeah.
because
It's going to
my
take
personal opinion is the questions and the answers and how they're worded is very important.
Well, I thought it was, when I got looked at the agenda, one of the things was, you know, referendum materials, so we needed to put a packet together, and we wanted to, you know, we needed a starting point, so.
Yeah.
Well, no, this is very good.
Yeah, it's, you know,
We can change the order, you know, I thought it was, you know, obviously the pictures on the front grab you a little bit. I mean, that's the wow factor.
That's the point.
Just inside, you usually have your president's message or the board's message. We did thought having an index on the front, because some people aren't going to care about certain pieces. Okay, I just want to see what it's going to cost me. I'm going to just see what the cost. They can quickly look through it and get to that.
Is on page 9,
Uh-huh.
the current size 17,000 square feet.
Yeah,
Is that
don't-
accurate number?
No, I just threw numbers.
Do a number.
You notice they're all rounded off.
Okay.
Yeah, please,
Yeah.
for those I handed behind me, don't take these verbatim and print them.
Fair enough.
Okay, I'm sharing them with
This is draft.
It's a working mock-up. What are we talking
Could you write draft? on
any
the front
of the
that?
facts or figures in here.
I'm serious.
about?
Yeah, I mean,
They've not been properly vetted.
no, page 9 is an example, Joe. I've got size, 17,000 versus 20,000.
Write draft in front of that, please.
Yeah, I just, they are not for publication.
This is
It's a work in progress, right?
a working mock-up with placeholder numbers.
Yeah,
Steve's earlier comment, that number
You
is
can publicize
30,000
page 8. You can publicize page
30,600
8.
is the actual number. This is zero.
I see 3,000. That's good. Thank you for that catch on that one.
What's that?
Page 5, the 30,600.
Can
10.
you make that statement one more time? As a formal statement that this information is in there.
All right, everybody's got
For the
that,
record?
right? For
It's
the
not-
record, this is a
not-
draft, it is not for
For the record.
publication.
Not going to.
Yeah.
Please.
I shared it with the folks behind us out of courtesy.
Took a hell of a risk. Get
Well,
it back.
You understand not on the
I
record.
actually didn't.
You understand not on the
I'm
record.
comfortable.
What's the big deal between 17 and 20? I don't understand the concern.
No, just anything in here, Joe. So I'm saying that these aren't
I can't believe you
scrubbed
just said
facts. But,
This is just a dummy, basically, right?
yeah, it's just a starting point.
It's a mock-up, yeah.
The numbers in here are placeholders.
That's all.
You should have real dummy numbers, you know, 10 feet and
Some
5.
are right, some are wrong.
These are about.
Do I need to collect those back from you?
You may have.
Because I can do that.
Try to be helpful.
That's pretty accurate.
It's close. It was late. It was late. We were, you know, I was trying to type it up to give a good.
I think you're overly concerned, but anyway, we get the point.
Thank
We
you,
hope we are.
Bob, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you for the trust and confidence in the.
All right. So this is.
Well, we're asking for suggestions too,
Yeah.
as far
Yeah,
as
that-
what
that's-
Yeah,
might
that's
be
what I
entered or
thought sharing it.
not.
I mean, we've got the press behind us, so it's a good. All right, so
I
this
didn't
was an
really
idea.
need behind us, but this.
I'm just.
Some are, some are.
Let's not go too far.
Okay, let's,
This is an example of what
They're
we
up against the
felt,
wall, Dave.
okay.
and what we did was kind of. I'm trying to do it in a bullet format. I looked at some of the past ones we did, and when we did, I don't want to say there was too much detail, but in my opinion, there was too much detail.
Oh, way too much.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't mean to be offensive to anybody. I think people like to read a quick,
Yes.
What are the facts? What are the points? And again, you guys can redirect me and say I'm wrong on this, but that's why we laid it out this way. It's supposed to be just to the point. You know, I thought highlighting the contractors we were working with, I thought was a good thing, just so, you know, and I intend to put their website so folks can say, oh, who is Harkins or AWB or Savoy Brown? They can, you know, pull it up and look themselves. I think, you know, having just some quick bullet information for everybody.
Is the little guy with the pencil gonna be moving around when this final is
Are we
finished?
gonna get rid of him?
It's going to be scratch and stiff. You'll see. He'll write on it.
Dan's a parrot.
It's very distracting.
All right, so Dan, you and I have talked a little bit, but you haven't seen this draft yet. Any thoughts?
Well, let's go with that a different direction.
Okay.
You've got a timeline that we're trying to follow here. So you need comments back from the board on this with a little bit of thought by.
We're going to have by July or August 3rd. So the first is taking it back.
How about you need to react to them and integrate.
Yeah, see,
You need time to.
Yeah, don't let.
I think we need the board to see this again. I think the board has to approve this before.
Once
getting
it's-
the rubber.
So we would say.
But I'm looking for, you know, let's divide
Yeah,
that
right.
board input back to the staff.
Tomorrow or Friday.
Yeah, well, the question is.
Let's answer the question of when do these materials have
How
to
about
go to the
Friday?
printer?
That was right.
The first,
Yeah.
there's your answer.
Okay.
July 1st?
August.
August 1st. Oh.
How about
Guess we can
Dan?
go on vacation. We got a lot of time. Man.
Well, we operate.
Dan, how about, no, I heard August 1st, but how about Friday, because they're gonna need time to deal with what you suggest and this and that.
How about we let Bob tell us what his timeline needs
Well,
to
that's
be?
what Dan
what
asked.
August
That's what Dan asked.
I know, but everybody else has answered except Bob.
Bob, when would you like them to give you a comfortable amount of time to work with?
Well, what I'd like to do, if it's
Just tell
possible with you all, is to have it by Friday
There you
afternoon.
go. Right.
And the reason behind it, we also, just so everybody understands, not only are we up against a printer deadline, we're also, the elections committee is required to review the material as well. So I need to let them see it before it goes out. And they're scheduled for a meeting on the 3rd, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. Yeah.
So I may have to ask them if they can move their meeting up by a few days, but I really need your input before I can give it to them.
So the answer to Dan's question is Friday afternoon.
Friday afternoon.
Okay, now, what's the next date after that?
Well, what would happen, you mean after Friday?
Yeah, well, I mean, the board's gonna have to see it again before.
We'll work on it over the weekend. And then we're gonna have to move into the following week, so we would probably have a meeting with you all on no later than Tuesday,
That date is, what date is that, Frank?
the 31st.
Okay.
That's a Tuesday, correct?
Yes.
So can we set an early meeting that day, please?
8, 9, 1.
I'm looking at 8 o'clock.
Tuesday morning?
That's set, 8 o'clock, I'm the problem, I mean, is that solid?
I can't edict everything, I'm just saying, I'm.
Here-
looking at 8
So
o'clock.
moved.
8 o'clock
8
works
o'clock.
for, here's the only
Okay.
thing I'll share with you guys is 8's fine with me, but I have a 10 o'clock tour, that's one of our tour dates, which is fine. I mean, I'll have to leave at some point if we're still in the meeting, so, because we have folks scheduled for that day. But I would think 2 hours, which would be.
Yeah, that should,
2 hours ought to do it.
Probably.
Okay.
okay, 8 o'clock Tuesday.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
One thing that bothers me, I mean, in general, I'd say it's, pretty thorough preliminary job. This front sheet, I think, is, I use a bad word, sucks. Magazine publishers and whatnot go to great extremes with their cover because, especially for newsstand sales, the cover is what grabs people. I think this whole vertical lettering is not something that most people grab and read right away, even though we tend to think it's sort of neat or whatever. Horizontal.
To your point, I just noticed it.
Quite frankly, from my own point, this is personal point of view, you guys can agree with this with it. Picture at the bottom of the waterfront side, I think makes a good presentation. I've chopped a lot of that green area off at the bottom, make it narrow in height. Frankly, I'd dump the top picture. Because the picture at the bottom more closely represents what people are used to in our country club. And that one up the top, yacht club, I'm sorry. You can't see the sides right. I don't think it gives you a good perspective of what the building's going to
Are
look
you
like.
trying to say it looks ugly, Joe?
I'm saying this drawing, I don't think gives you a good perspective of what your overall thought of the building is going to see, where the front does.
Let me ask you a question then,
That's what
for
you're
the whole
looking
team,
for.
excuse me, the whole team. Is that picture better than this one?
Yes.
Yeah, I use this one in preference to the
Yeah,
top.
that's a
myself.
good idea.
Yeah, because that picture gives you the
That really does.
right-hand cupola at the back
Yep.
and a much more balanced view.
It's
of the
sort
building.
of, I don't know what it's going to look like after if it's built, but this sort of gives you the impression you got this big thing sticking up here. You don't see all this over the other
It's very
side.
boxy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think the cover needs to have some design work done to it.
Yeah, and that picture over there on that thing does look good.
I like,
Well,
I like that picture.
Excellent input.
Oh, but Joe's other comment is well taken too, and that's that what we have are buildings on way in the backgrounds. We haven't shown environmentals. Where's the road? Where's the landscaping? The architect didn't do, a real hard sell architect drawing on this, which is not a bad thing. But I look at those three pictures back there, and I got to tell you, there's another one I need to do. So.
I don't know if they actually do it or how quick you could do it, Dan, but like, where's the other one? Oh, we don't have it here.
You got three. There's one down there.
Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah,
There you
that's
go.
one.
Are we going to have time to look at this and get our thoughts back to Bob?
Yeah.
Is that what we're doing, or are we doing it now?
Well, that's why we were talking about
No, we're
scheduling.
just
'Cause
wasting
that's
We're just schmoozing that.
We're not gonna do it now.
Well,
Right.
your first word that you were gonna say is correct, so. yeah.
No, I wasn't. I was going to say schmoozing.
No, you were not. You were gonna say wasting, but.
Dan, to your point, this drawing here, if the guy could do it quickly, I mean, if this were to show some tables and stuff out here, or show people actually there drawn in with
I'm sorry.
tables and.
Oh, no, it's okay.
well, we're
Yeah,
both
so how much
we're
work
both
something
using
to do.
architects selling
Oh,
for
no,
everything,
I
which
left
do
my
that.
job, and I'm
I know.
not putting
I
money
agree with
to
you on
speak, so.
I agree.
And I think he can do that. I mean,
No,
I think it's-
he's already working on it,
Yeah.
of course. We've already talked to him about it, getting a better picture on the front. I like your input on the vertical and your input on one. I mean, that's good input, so.
Okay, let me bring this back. One of the reasons I call this a working session, not a meeting, because it was going to be a bit of a free-for-all, but I think we have our request for input on this document. I think we had a good discussion on the pictures, good ideas. The other referendum, the ballot question wording.
I didn't create something for that yet.
Okay, let me ask my question that I asked yesterday to you, Bob, and to others who've been involved with this. I mean, I've read the guidelines that it can't be an A or B, it's got to be up or down on. But is the amount of money that is listed on the ballot, is it a fixed figure or is it a not to exceed figure? I know other ballots that I've read have said, here's the amount of money. But I'm just wondering if there is if there's any difference in that, or
I
just,
don't think you can say not to exceed.
well, I'm just asking the opinion of others as well.
What did we do the last time? I really don't remember.
I think it was a fixed number.
I think it was a fixed number, that's what I recall.
You put a fixed price on the community center.
On the community center.
Terry, to
We
your
took
point,
that
it's
as
not
an
really
option.
clear in the wording of whether it has to be a fixed number, or
Right.
can it be to spend no more than. I mean, I've
Oh,
read it.
well,
Well,
what's the difference?
Well,
I
I'm not
wouldn't.
sure there is one. Somebody asked me about that. I
Well,
just raised
the
that.
issue becomes, there are actually two issues, Terry, underneath that. One of them is in my book, when I look at the total numbers, the biggest variable I see in there is site prep, which is the takedown of the old building and correcting whatever's underneath that mess to build it up to where we need it built up to and all that stuff. I don't know. I hope that what we've got in the bid is padded a bit on that one so that there's enough money to do it. And it may not be, Bob. I mean, I don't know. You're the guy who's been through these numbers with a microscope at least 30 times. You probably haven't
We're
started seeing it at
confident,
night.
yeah, we're confident in that number.
At
It's a
the
good
total
sum.
number.
Yes.
And you're confident that the other side of this coin is you're confident that the 5% contingency is going to be adequate so that we've got room to move. So we can actually put a number in there that's neither not to exceed or anything else. It's just for this.
If I may read, just, this was valid for the community center. The question: to authorize the Ocean Pines Association to rehabilitate the community hall located in White Horse Park as presented at the cost of $1,750,000. Yes, no.
I agree with that.
Well,
That's what, yes,
And
what
it
the other
costs
was.
us. If it's $3 over, it doesn't.
Well,
Why did
that's
they use
at
the
the
word
cost of is
rehabilitate?
fine.
Yeah,
That's
that's-
exactly. That's
Exactly.
great. That question is not correct because we're not rehabilitating.
No, but in terms of phrasing
It was a
the
yes or
dollarized
no.
amount, I
It's a
think that's
yes
the
or
right way to
no.
do it.
It has to be a yes or no question.
It does have to be a
Yes,
it
that's
has
no
to be
question, I
yes
know
or no.
that.
Getting back to, I hate to digress, and getting back to page 5 on this, talk me down, or whatever, but the Q&A, the last question is, how much will this cost them? From my perspective, that should probably be the first question, because I think that is what most people are interested in.
That's the feedback you're gonna have back to me
Yeah.
in 2 days.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, these
Okay.
questions are just, I was throwing them out
Okay.
last night, off the top of
Gotcha.
my head, there's no rhyme or reason to them right now.
Gotcha.
So right now, it's a simple sentence at this point, as I understand it. Again,
Question?
you two guys have been through this.
Yeah.
Well, we could take that question and modify it just a little bit.
There was a reason for rehabilitate too, and I can't remember what it was.
Yeah,
There was a
because-
lot of input on that.
Well, there was, you were originally.
Well, it
planning
changed
on
along
using
the way.
existing floor, right?
No,
They
we
changed
switched
direction.
off to a new building very, very quickly.
Yeah.
They changed direction.
So that wasn't a holdover or anything like that. So, but I can't remember, maybe Rayco was, but, or Clark on that.
So that wording in the ballot structure and all that is something that's
It's fine.
easy
Did
to
you
work
have
out.
copies put in our mail slots of that question? And we could all get comments back to you on it by Friday.
Yeah, are we gonna copy to all on our comments, so it's very useful to
Yeah.
me
Yeah,
to
okay.
see
We can do that.
comments coming in as they come in, so you can say, well,
Okay.
I didn't think of that, or I don't like, it, whatever.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir, one more request. This is obviously available in electronic form. Is it something that we can get?
The
What is-
challenge
what-
with it, it's in 2 different formats. You notice it's stapled, we cut and pasted, so you'd have it.
It was a fun question for you.
It was
Thanks
late
for
last
asking,
night,
Dan.
early morning, kind of putting the pieces together.
Got it.
But to your point though, if in your markup or response, if you just want to refer to page 5 and type something up and electronically send it, I'm good with it.
Well,
I'm cut and
I
paste.
tend to be visually oriented as opposed to verbally oriented, so I like to play with where the pieces go and where they look like and things like that. I can do that. So
Okay, I will, we could be here and the energy is good. But I will take a motion to go into closed session.
Tom,
having done it quite a
The
number.
good in order.
I don't remember.
Sure.
Sure, go right ahead.
One thing that hasn't been mentioned here, there's a gentleman named Don Butt. I don't know Don really. I believe it's CPA in Baltimore. He posted a long message in my forum that was very thoughtful in full support of this bill. He concluded by saying, he somehow hadn't even been mentioned in this room yet today, and I'm not sure why. He concluded by saying, should I see, I forget how you describe it, a good business plan for this facility, it will receive my vote yes. If not, I'm voting no.
Okay. Motion to go into closed session, so moved. Second? Second. All in favor?